Welcome to the Libido Lounge, where we focus on all things love, lust, and libido. We believe that fabulous sex is important to health as exercise and good food. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode on the Libido Lounge. I'm your host, libido expert, Dr. Diane Mueller, and we have a juicy episode for you guys today. We are talking about the libido and fertility. And you might be wondering initially what these things have in common, but they actually have a lot in common because, of course, fertility issues can be stressful. And one of the best ways to manage stress is through your libido. So, we're going to talk about libido, fertility, what you can do, how these things are related, and more with our guest today. I'm so excited to introduce you to founder of De Novo Fertility, our guest, Jessica Preston. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And let's start. I want to start our discussion. We talked offline about making this juicy, so we'll get into all those good questions here in a moment. But let's just start initially with, what are the stats and how often is this a problem where we're trying to get pregnant? We have, challenges and, fertility issues. Like, where does the decreased libido and how frequently does the decreased libido come up as a challenge with fertility and pregnancy?
Yeah, it's very common. It's more common than not. And so the way that I usually put this is trying is fun for 1 month, and then trying becomes trying. And 1 month we think, okay, it's fun. We're going to have sex how much we want, and then all of a sudden we expect this quickly. And then if it doesn't happen, there's that little nagging part in our mind that says, "Oh no, what's going on?" And that ends up doing a number on us on a subconscious level. And so it's not just for women; it's for men. And a lot of this actually impacts men a lot of the time more so than women.
So do you feel then that there's a level where it's like, okay, we reached that month mark, it was like super fun, and now it's stressful, where it actually then leads into like a subsequent low libido and even like performance issue then that is then contributing to fertility or infertility?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of this is on demand. So instead of being having sex when you want to, being spontaneous, you're in this spot where we have to have sex on, wait, honey, I'm ovulating, so we need to have sex every other day for these days around the time of ovulation, or my kit says today is the day, let's go, but you're working late and I'm tired. And so we end up in these positions where we are trying to schedule sex and it isn't anymore for pleasure, although orgasm has to occur, at least for the man, in order for us to conceive. And so there's a lot of pressure, especially on men, for performance. So, have to perform, have to finish. And that actually becomes an issue for a lot of men also. In a lot of the groups out there with men and women, or the women's support groups, we see women saying, does it count if he didn't finish? That we count it as a day that we actually tried to conceive, and that day does not actually count. And so that also is very emasculating. And that emasculation of men is really doing a number when it comes to fertility and libido.
Yeah, and I see that, right? Because there's so much that we have as humans in general, but also, also I think we can, genderize it as well around being able to provide certain things for our partners, for our relationships, for our family. And that is I think from a masculine standpoint, that huge component is like, I want to provide this. I want to provide this for my partner. I want to provide this for my future family.
That's
And
right.
there can be so much wrapped up in there. So the image that I'm actually getting in my brain right now as you're talking is like, I feel like that classic movie or TV show image when couples are trying and it's like so stressful. And then finally we get orgasm, and then woman immediately sticks her legs up in the air and like, all of that, like that type of classic image of what to do. Obviously, there's a lot better ways of handling this. And obviously, there's a lot better ways of going about this from a low, a low or infertility standpoint and a subsequent vicious cycle that we get into with this. So, how do we get out of this cycle, right? How do we get out of the cycle when it's like, okay, performance anxiety, emasculation, like all of a sudden that trickles into low libido and that trickles into worsening the fertility? What do we do about getting and breaking out of that cycle?
Yeah, first, I think what we need to do is make sure we have clear communication, and that is so hard. It's harder than we think. It's the elephant in the room. We need to be able to communicate well about our fears, our concerns. What if this doesn't happen? We have this on both sides. Both partners can feel like, are you going to stay with me? Are you still going to love me? There's a lot of shame and guilt in this. So when we have that on both sides, and this is the person we're supposed to share our deepest parts of ourselves with, but it's also the person we have the most at stake with. So when it's the person we have the most at stake with, we tend to either, in a attachment style wise, we either, we retreat a little bit in our avoidant selves, or we attack in our anxious selves, and that causes more of a discordance. With that being said, the communication is really key. So we really, really recommend that you find that way to connect. And so we'll start diving into that juicy right now. One thing that we start with is we start with eye gazing. We start with intro to Tantra. We start with things that don't require words for communication. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but especially when we're a little harried and we're not exactly sure what we want to do or how we can be with our partner, that is a place to start. And if it can lead to even the understanding of, oh, this is really hard. I can't look you in the eye for more than 30 seconds. I feel like you're seeing all of my shame pieces, or a blemish on my face, or whatever it may be. Or you find depth in eye gazing, or you find laughter in eye gazing. So this is actually starting, this is in the Tantra space, when you start really in that connection of your internal selves with each other. This helps a lot with communication. So really, communication is key in any kind of introductory Tantra, any kind of intimacy space, and holding each other, having that where there isn't an expectation of sex along with it, so that that can be part of our connection, our oxytocin release, which can also help our fertility hormones and our sense of security and connection. So all of those, that's where I would start, because sometimes we can't find the words if we're just going to be battling each other. So if we find we can find the words, that's helpful. We're a big fan of nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg's work, imago dialogue, how I feel is my responsibility, but I would like to share that with you, as you are the person who loves me dearly and you're my number one fan, and as I am yours. So those are really important ways with communication to start. I think that's a big start.
Yeah, there's a lot you said in there that we could probably have a whole episode, a whole couple
Certainly.
hour episode just on, those types of conversations, right? And I love those topics as well. Marshall Rosenberg, and using feeling words are not things like "you made me feel," right? That's not
Right.
how we use feeling words. Those aren't feeling words. So, in getting lists, I think on those things can be super useful. So. Okay, so somebody starts with eye gazing and looking in deep in this tantra, and we have all this stuff going on. So, what you're saying, just so I'm understanding to our listeners, is that oftentimes when we start with the eye gazing, then we have this like already this heart opening depths of connection that is almost then, say, allowing like the nervous system to calm and a safety feeling to settle in, so that then from there we can go into, say, nonviolent communication, feeling words, the I state, all these different things. Is that correct?
That is exactly right. That's why we start with the nonverbal, and then we can move into the verbal when our nervous systems are more settled in place. And it allows us to not feel the anxiety of time pressure as much. So when we then end up in a position, if we have a month, then when we have a month, if there's a point where one partner says, I can't do this, don't touch me, don't. You just take a month off. But when you are regulated and your nervous system is more safe, then taking a month off is preservation of the whole family unit. It's not just about trying to have a baby. So then you can try again the next month. And it is very important to know that that is an okay thing. And that can actually help you with your sex drive and feeling honored and secure and safe with your partner.
You're like leading me so perfectly into where I was thinking we should go next. So, which is like one of the things I talk a lot about in sexuality and libido work is the concept of really deeply understanding things like your own needs, wants, preferences, desires, and turn offs, and understanding our own. So then we can eventually then better communicate that to our partner and understand our partner's needs, wants, desires, preferences, turnoffs, right? So my
Yeah.
question for you then, and I think I know the answer based upon what you just said, but I think we should go a little deeper, is from that standpoint, how do you feel like then when we get into communication and we are speaking in these loving and safe ways, how in terms of fertility and in working through this, how important do you think it is in really understanding our own, needs, wants, preferences, desires, and turn-ons and turn-offs? Do you think that that comes into play when it comes to fertility?
Absolutely imperative.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, because where are we going to find our fun otherwise? So let's please know ourselves and let's we talk in our program about kinks and fetishes and definitions and making it very safe so that people, the taboo-ness of a lot of these words or the thought of anything outside of missionary position is so challenging for some. So we make it so much easier and attainable for you to be able to have that thought process within yourself and then share that with your partner. Because a lot of partners, whether you're having trouble conceiving or not, are not aware of what their partner's true needs and desires are. So there are a lot of ways to do that. We could have a ton of episodes just on that alone because we talk about that. We have our 10 steps of safety and things that how can we explore within ourselves and our partner what they want and how can we please ourselves and please them. And where is there a no, but we're not passing any judgment. Everything that you have as a desire is absolutely normal because it's yours. And there's no shame in that. So sharing that space is great. Then finding new toys or a new dress up or new fetish or kink. And there are two things actually that I would love to add in this. One is in the world of play, which isn't always about sex. We want to make sure when you're trying to have a baby that you're still having sex at the end of that for ejaculation to occur where it's supposed to for trying to get pregnant. And so I would love nothing more than for people to forget that while they're trying and then say, oops, wait, hold on. wait, real quick, so while they're enjoying themselves and enjoying their relationship and enjoying their pleasure, to be able to find that space of, don't forget, honey, this is where it's supposed to go at the end, and go from there. The other is we work in the area, we're working with someone now about teaching a class in our program about multiple orgasms for men and how lovely that is in the space of trying to conceive, because it doesn't have to be a quickie in 10 minutes on your lunch break because we're ovulating tomorrow. It can actually be, let's have a beautiful 2-hour lovemaking session tonight. We're going to have dinner. There's going to be, candlelight, and then we have no other plans and we're turning off our phones and this is what we're going to do. And nothing is better than that. So it sounds a little bit counterintuitive to people trying, or we can introduce the world of play and fun and romance and multiple orgasms for both partners into this space and truly let trying become enjoyable.
I love that. And you're leading me again into where I wanted to go. So this is so good. So, the concept of orgasm, I think it's another area that's so complicated, especially for women, right? And, I think the idea of multiple orgasms for men and edging and all these different concepts can be helpful for women. But, some people will talk in the fertility space that I've seen about like, oh, the advantageousness of women having an orgasm at that time of conception as well. There's also even people that are talking about, orgasmic childbirth, right? Where you can actually have orgasms as you deliver and release all those yummy chemicals, which is really intimidating for women when they have such a hard time. And some women, that are anorgasmic or other women having such a hard time reaching orgasm, which is, I think, a really important thing to talk about. So, if women are listening to this and they're like, what about me? And I can't reach orgasm, or it's really hard for me to reach orgasm. Are those things that you tend to work with when it comes to fertility?
We do, absolutely. But first, let's just take care of that myth right now. A woman does not have to have an orgasm to conceive. It is not sucking sperm up. There was old data that was, it wasn't data even. I read this because when we were trying to myth bust everything, I'm like, let's find every little bit. No, absolutely not. You do not need to a woman does not need to have an orgasm in order to conceive. So let's take that weight off of us, shall we? Because there's no reason to add more weight on. We have enough. So let's just go with then if you and let's just talk about while trying that I think the orgasmic birth is such an we actually have a coach who in our program who teaches orgasmic birth.
Oh,
If
yay.
somebody were to choose this, but that's probably more home birth, probably not hospital birth. And there's so many nuances to your mental state when it comes to that. So we'll put that aside. But when it comes to even just trying to conceive, pleasure is really important, just feeling good and making sure that you are in, because when we're not experiencing pleasure, that also does a number on us no matter what. So we have our conscious mind and then we have our subconscious mind. And we are talking a lot about nervous system safety, surrender, feeling like we can allow our partner to everything with us that we love and they love so that we can nurture in this loving space. And so I think that it's really important to know pleasure is important. Orgasm is not mandatory. And for anorgasmic women, there are so many different tools we can use, whether you're trying to conceive or not, to try to get you to that space. But I think a big piece is understanding there's no shame in that. Find pleasure even in love. I mean, we're women. Women tend to find a lot more in that whole touch, love, caress, nurturing space. So, where can you embrace love and what that means for you and your partner? How is that connection for you? And I think that's really important. Everybody's their own individual, and our own personal definition is all we need.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I really appreciate intimacy expert Susan Bratton. One of the things she says is, as women, one of the gifts we have is we're really good at multitasking. And what that also means is if you bring that into pleasure, like multitasking is a lot of bad rep, and there's a lot of things that are problematic from a present moment and relaxation standpoint, right? With multitasking. But if you bring that into pleasure, and realize that we have the capacity as women that like to experience so many different erogenous zones and so many different parts of pleasure at the same time, that is a great use of multitasking, right? It's so good. And we can experience pleasure, like you said, without orgasm. So I'm glad to have that conversation. What else do you feel like from a fertility standpoint is like, are there any other basic, we gotta say this, we gotta say these things because they're so rooted in the basics that we can't leave them out?
Yeah, I think it's just actually the most important things that I wanted to make sure that we said today is that if you need to skip a month, please skip a month. And it's heartbreaking, and our heart sinks in our stomach if anyone is listening to this and they think, oh, I don't want to skip a month. But skipping a month is beautiful in a lot of ways. You don't have the 2 weeks of waiting and anxiety. You have a whole month off so that you can kind of reset and spend that time with a date night at least once per week, making sure that you have connectivity. Gottman Institute talks about bidding, positive bidding for each other and really getting connected in that space. And so I just think that it's so important to remember that our connection as partners is so important. Intimacy is great, but eroticism is also important. So intimacy and knowing each other incredibly well is great, but then we can lose that erotic edge. So make sure we bring in some of that erotic, dressing up or being sassy or calling him daddy or whatever it is that you want to do that is going to actually help enhance everything for him, because we know when we see him go, oh yeah, and you see that in him, it is ego, but it's one of those parts. It's like that I did that for my partner and he sees pleasure on you, in you, and that way you can keep that balancing act. But understand when those days come when it's the whole, okay, it's tonight or it's going to be tomorrow, you need to find ways potentially to switch it up. And sometimes that means a little less communication because of that erotic space, a little bit of surprising, a little bit of maybe not sharing that tomorrow is the day that you're going to have sex, and just get it all set up. He might know in the back of his mind, but just get the stage set and everything should happen just fine for you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. There's so many things that you say that I talk about in my work too. And I've just, I don't, my specialty is not fertility, it's libido. So it's really enjoyable to hear these topics applied to the fertility space. I talk a lot about like the concept of novelty and monogamy, which is essentially exactly what you're saying. Like, how do we find ways in these long-term partners where we go through the day to day, how do we find that way to keep it like spicy and sexy and bring some passion and have that desire and everything you're talking about? So
Yeah.
amazing to bring that into the fertility space. And
But what they need to know
yeah,
also is
please.
you're trying realize after you get pregnant and have a baby, you're still going to have to be creative.
Yes,
So this is
exactly.
practice. This is practice for parenthood. This is practice of, okay, when are we putting the baby down? I'm exhausted. You're exhausted. What's our timing on this? Lock the door. Where are we going to sneak this in?
Right.
So trying in this, we're just building this in our relationship in practice all around before we have that baby so that we can still keep using those same skill sets after the baby is here.
Yeah, exactly right. That's such a good point. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It was such a great conversation. I want to make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of you. I know we talked offline about lots of different ways to work together, really, really deep dives of like putting all of these pieces together that you guys do at De Novo around this entire infertility picture and supporting on so many different levels. And then I also know that you have like an intro package that we want it to be very careful how people understand what that intro package is and that we have a discount for them. So can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so we are a full team of coaches. We have male coaches and female coaches, and we have an entire program that does exactly this. We focus on relationships and autonomic nervous system balance. We talk about fertility and help with fertility on a conscious, subconscious, and unconscious level. So we do biofeedback and hypnotherapy because we need to break down those baby blocks. We have a full service program that is coaching with also supplements included. So it is a large program. It's 12 weeks long. And so that is where we get really into this space of teaching imago dialogue and nonviolent communication. So you can sign up for a call with one of us. You'll get one of our coaches, if you go to De Novo Fertility online, denovofertility.com. And that way you could speak with one of us about our programs and what might work for you. Our intro program is a 5 weeks baby basics. And this is basically when you go and you say, I just got married or we're thinking about having a baby, what can I do to optimize my health? And so it's a wellness 5 weeks where basically you get our entire optimized nutrition plan. You get all of our programs, all of our videos about how you should exercise, sleep, breathe, your stress management, and 1 week on relationships, and that you can do through our app on your phone. And so that is normally $397. We are giving you and your people $300 off, so it will be only $97. We are cautious about this. It is an intro program. Our larger program with our whole team, where we're looking at your conscious and subconscious levels, that is, if you've been trying, if you've considered IVF or you've done IVF, or you're finding that you want something a little more natural and you're really having more of a stress load in your infertility space, that's really where that is for. If that is you, Baby Basics, I don't think is quite enough for you, but please call us and we are happy to discuss all of our options with you.
And we'll have that for everybody. All of that information and the discount code, everybody, will be in the show notes from today. So I just want to thank you again. I loved meeting you and I really adored this conversation. So it's nice to continue the convo from when you and I met over the past year. And I really am excited about everything you guys are doing over there. So thanks so much for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you again so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
And everybody, just to say goodbye to you guys for another episode on the lounge. Remember to check out the show notes. Remember, you can always find me by taking my libido quiz at libidoquiz.com. And this is Dr. Diane, your libido doc, signing off here, reminding you to always stay classy, always stay sexy, and always be a little badassy. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Libido Lounge. Please don't keep me a secret. Please share this with your friends. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, as well as how to work with me at mylibidodoc.com.